Thank you, Gail Marie, and thank you to all of our district Rotarians who have been good enough to join us early in the morning and earlier in Saskatchewan. Community engagement is like club engagement, which is like member engagement. In order to engage someone or a community, we need to ask what they want and need. What are they interested in? What turns their crank? Even if we have what we think is a great idea for the community, we need to ask them what they want, and it has to be their idea. If it isn't their idea, it may fail. So how do we find out what the community wants or needs? We have to ask them. This can be effectively done at a gathering. You need to give them a reason to come out. How about a pancake breakfast or a barbecue lunch, and then break the crowd down into tables of 6 to 8 and get them to talk about what they feel is wanted and needed in their community. Then share the findings with the group. Once all of the ideas are out, get them to vote by placing colored dots or some other innovative idea on the ideas that they like the most. Then get them to put different colored dots on the projects they would like to work on. And lastly, place their name badge on a project that they would like to lead. That's about as simple as I can make it. This approach can be done virtually as well, utilizing breakout rooms. It is more difficult to get the hook to get people to get on the call, but remember, it requires less of their time to do that. And often you can develop a catchy byline. The same thing like when you're sending out emails. If you put something in the subject line that gets people's attention, they might read at least the first couple of sentences. Once the community have identified their top priorities, try to partner with as many community organizations as possible to provide for the wants and the needs. In Kenora, we have a very successful nutrition on weekend program, and we've partnered with many organizations in our community, including the Northwest Health Unit, St. Albans Church, the Retired Teachers Association, the Kenora District Services Board, and the Community Foundation, just to name a few. And Ken, if you'd put the slides up in Regina, the Rotary Club of Regina has partnered with the United Way. Okay, next slide, Ken. So this slide basically we can click through them fairly quickly. It's a reading program, and the partnership with the United Way and the Rotary Club is working really well, providing reading opportunities for young children. It's known, and this goes along with our goal of eliminating child poverty, that if you can't read by grade 3, if you're not reading at a grade 3 level, you're likely not going to graduate from high school. If you don't graduate from high school, your chances of falling through the cracks in the social system become very, very good, that you're going to fall through those cracks. Please flip through them as we go, Ken.
At this slide here, our club won a literary award for that, and Al Gowdy, our secretary, is presenting our president, Kaylee Lax, with a certificate and the awards. So,
go ahead, Ken, and provide us with the commentary on this. That'd be great.
Yeah. So here you have a couple of the kids who were involved in the program, and they made up thank you signs for our club, thanking us for our involvement in the program. So. And this is the list of the sponsors that, together with our club and worked with the United Way on their summer reading program.
You've got a lot of partners there, Ken, and that's how to expand our reach.
Mm-hmm. This is just an example of some of the books that were provided to some of the kids who were participating in the program. So. Snacks during the day for the kids.
I think that's the end of it, isn't it, Ken?
Yeah, that's the end of it.
Yeah. So those are a couple of examples of how partnering allows us to expand our reach. So basically, in summary, if you want to engage your community, you have to find out what they want and need. Don't assume what they want and need. And I think Strini's going to help us to understand how to do that with our Indigenous communities, and we'll move on to that in a moment. Once you've figured out what you can do, don't limit yourself to just doing it with your Rotary Club. Find partners to expand your ability to deliver the goods. The Nutrition on Weekends program in Kenora has blossomed to over $100,000 a year. We couldn't do that with just our own club, and we also need the volunteers from the other organizations to help pack the groceries. So before we go to Strini, I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions that they want to throw at me.
Fred, it's Mona Graham.
Hi, Mona.
Yeah. When you first started this, what process did you guys identify of getting together with the community to identify the needs? Did you have like a town hall meeting?
Yes, we did. This was after we had a small group of Rotarians take a look at the child poverty goal, and we identified as many organizations in Kenora as we could who deal with child poverty in one way or another. And then we corresponded with them and then invited them to a town hall meeting. And the idea for the Nutrition on Weekends came out of that meeting. One of the participants who's with the Northwest Health Unit said, Rotary works to provide the snack program and meal program at the schools. What happens to the kids on the weekend? It got really quiet.
Okay, I was just wondering how to start the whole process. What's the best way to maybe get the ball rolling to get the various groups, together?
I think the best way to get the ball rolling, we didn't do this in Kenora, but I've done it in other situations. And it's really to try to, invite your community to come out to a meeting and like I said, throw a pancake breakfast or something and then make them work a little bit after the breakfast or after the barbecue lunch and get them to talk at their individual tables about what do you think that we really want and need? And people get their ideas out, and you probably get 100 ideas, and then you get people to go around and vote with the dots. I really like the voting with the dots thing. Works really, really well because it's really anonymous.
Okay, thanks, Fred.
Have we got any other questions?
Just it's Ken, PI District Committee, Ken Singer.
Morning, Ken.
I think one really important thing too is once you make these partnerships is to get the Rotary brand wherever you can possibly get it, like because that'll help you raise awareness of the work that Rotary does in the community, and it just kind of makes its own gravy because more people are aware of Rotary's involvement as you move forward. So I think wherever you have the opportunity, get that Rotary logo up in there and promote Rotary wherever possible.
That's a great point, Ken. When we deliver our baskets or our bags of groceries to the schools, we have the crates that the bags are held in are identified with Rotary, so that everybody in the school. But it just occurred to me, I think we need to try to get the bags that we pack the groceries into to maybe get them printed with the Rotary logo. That's something I'll work on. That's a great point, Ken. Any other questions or comments?
It just
Fred,
was a
question. Jean-Marc here, question for you, Fred.
Go ahead, Jean-Marc.
I was president of a club in a small community in Manitoba, and that works really well because to do community engagement, because it's a lot easier to reach out to those folks, and the community is small, and you can really get a good sense of what the needs of the community are. When you're talking about a community like Regina, for example, or I'd love to hear from my colleagues in Winnipeg, perhaps, but how would you suggest we go about getting that need? Because it is pretty darn wide, and it would involve a ton of people. So we want to focus our efforts and not be everything to everybody, and not take a shotgun approach either. So what are your thoughts there?
My thoughts there. That's a great point, Jean-Marc, and I appreciate the difference. I would suggest in larger centers like Regina, Saskatoon, and Winnipeg, and even Brandon, Moose Jaw, I would break it down onto a more of a what area does your club meet in? What area is your club trying to serve? And zero in on that part. I know that the Winnipeg Rotary Club years ago did well, they're still doing the Rotary Leadership Circle project in the core area, and they got all of the boys and girls clubs in Winnipeg that deal with the disadvantaged children together to. So I think you have to look at your community and break it down into bite-sized pieces.
Fred,
There's
could
a
I
question.
also offer this suggestion? In Melford, we have an interagency group that meets, and you could always meet with your interagency groups in the larger cities to find out where the best needs are, because they cover everything from social services to policing to education, and usually in every place there is an interagency organization.
Folks, if you look in the chat, I just saw the one flash by where somebody suggested getting United Way to help. Patty, I think you said there was a question, and I think we can only take one more question, and then we have to get on to Strini.
Okay, so there's a question in chat from Rob. Do we have a way to partner with the Rotary HIP program and local organizations in District 5550 is the question.
Well, Strini is actually going to address us on behalf of HIP, and so I'll leave that with Strini and take this advantage to introduce you to Strini. Strini Reddy is a member of the Winnipeg Club. He is also the director of HIP for our district, and he's an educator. He's personally responsible for the revival of the Rotaract Club at the University of Manitoba. He's a great Rotarian. Please listen to what he has to say about engaging Indigenous communities. Strini, you're on.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be with you all. It's going to be a little frustrating because there's lots to say and limited time, but we'll do the best we can. And what I'm going to say to you in advance is that you will have my contact information at the end of the presentation. And please feel free to email me. I'll give you my phone number as well. Call me if you have questions we don't answer today. I'd be very happy to have a conversation with you about it. Don't call me before 9 though. All right, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to, first of all, start out by thanking Gail Marie and the district leadership team for keeping us focused on the district's amazing goal of working on reducing child poverty, and also of literacy. It was delightful to hear Ken and the partnership with United Way. It just warmed my heart to see how many partners you managed to bring to the table and to achieve that noble goal of raising the rates of literacy among particularly children who come from disadvantaged circumstances. It also makes me very proud to know that our district is such an incredible driver of the Ripple Effect program and what an impact that is having. So all that to say that Rotarians have a pretty significant role to play in using that power to be able to lift people, particularly children and youth, out of difficult circumstances. It surprises me sometimes, and also pleases me greatly to know how much people know about Rotary that I don't know they knew. So non-Rotarians very often speak about Rotary, and I'm very impressed to see that the reach of the ability of Rotary is far and wide. I've shared this before, forgive me those of you who've heard me talk, but I am so impressed with the fact that in 2018, Rotary International, when it had its conference in Toronto, chose to have National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Perry Bellegarde, give the opening welcome. And I just want to share his words with you because it should impress us to know that this is how we're viewed as Rotary by the National Chief. So let's have that video, please, Taisir.
Like you, I believe there are few commitments as important as the commitment to humanitarian service, to making a difference, especially for those less fortunate than ourselves. As Rotarians, you have a powerful voice. And now is the time to use that voice to influence world leaders and to build a better tomorrow for everyone. You are community leaders who have influence on the most pressing issues of our day. Issues like gender equality, climate change, economic development and environmental issues, and of course, reconciliation. There's a word in Cree, Muskapeos. It means helper or to be of service. And I believe this is our role as leaders. As an Muskapeos, it is your responsibility to be the voice of your community, to consult and engage with others from across the country while gathering insights on how other Canadians perceive First Nations issues. I must commend the Rotary on the Honoring Indigenous Peoples initiative. You've acted on the calls to action outlined in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, and you created a program that will educate all Canadians about our shared history, but more importantly, our shared future. This Canada-wide Joint Rotary and Indigenous Peoples initiative supports learning, it promotes understanding, and it will help build awareness and sensitivity of First Nations issues and priorities. Now, I look forward to seeing more programs and initiatives through this partnership. If every Rotary club across Canada and around the world takes up this promise, we can build understanding and move forward together. And as Canada embarks on acts of reconciliation and acknowledgement, as helpers and leaders, we know the important work that has to be done in order to get there. I'm pleased with the progress being made by groups such as Rotarians on reconciliation and improving the quality of life for our peoples. But the road ahead remains long and difficult. We're still too far from completing these very important calls to action. And the time for action is now. We cannot let another generation of First Nations children down. We will be relentless in our efforts, and we will not waste this opportunity for fundamental change. Everyone has a role in reconciliation. We're living in an important time. Continue your work of connecting people and ideas for building a better Canada for all peoples. I lift up all of you who are taking part in this convention and wish you all great success.
So Grand Chief Perry Bellegarde issued an interesting invitation. Since that time, since 2018, many people, including us Rotarians, have tried very hard to be faithful to the notion of reconciliation and to do the best we can to try and implement some of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. An appeal added to that of the chief was made by Chief Stacey Laforme. Chief Stacey Laforme is the chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation in Ontario. And this man is an accomplished poet and writer. And I'm always so impressed when I hear anything spoken by him. So we've got a little excerpt here of what he said at the International Convention in 2018. Yes, sir?
And bring education to the many Indigenous issues, including education itself. You know, Canada is known as a country, and Rotary is known as an international organization that supports those around the world in need. And honestly, from my heart, I tell you that the Indigenous people of this land and the Indigenous people of the world are in need. So stand with us, work with us, and walk with us. I offer you this poem, which I think is in keeping with the theme of this event, simply called Walk With Me. Take my hand, face this world with me. See the world as I see the world. Understand the world as I understand it. Let us learn from each other. Laugh with me, cry with me, fight for me, fight with me. Pray with me, pray for me, face this world with me. Let us walk together. Let us rejoice in the light, or be by my side when the dark claims me. Whatever tomorrow may bring, let us walk together. Let us face it side by side. The first step is to know each other. Remember, no one travels the world alone.
Thanks, Jesse. So I share those with you because I'm very moved when I listen to the words of Chief Stacey Laforme. He is very passionate about building relationships and working on reconciliation. And his words, stand with us, work with us, walk with us, is something that we really need to pay attention to when we're trying to engage with Indigenous communities. I have to say at the outset that I have found out over the years that the formal approach does not work with Indigenous communities in general. It may in some cases, but in most cases we found out that informal connections, personal connections have to be at the ground level in order for us to be successful later on. We formed an Honoring Indigenous Peoples Committee at Winnipeg Rotary Club a few years ago, soon after the National HIP Committee was formed. And we found it very important for us to improve our own learning, to work with each other, talk with each other, engage with Indigenous friends that we already knew, and ask them for their advice on how it is we could connect with the Indigenous community. Although we did not have any Indigenous members in our club at the time, when we formed the committee, we then invited non-members, Indigenous non-members, to help us think these things through. And since then, of course, we're very fortunate to have 3 Indigenous members in the club, and they are very key in helping us think this through. We also have on the national committee, thankfully, we have David Newman and Diane Redsky from Winnipeg, who are on the national committee, and they bring back to us all the news that's taking place at the national level and what we can do at the local level. I would urge you to take a look at the website of HIP. The learning resources there are just unbelievable. There's so much good stuff there that you can take a look at. So in Winnipeg, we started out in the city. Started out by connecting in the city. And I worked for a number of years with an organization called CEDA, which is the Community Education Development Association. And in conversation, we decided that there's a very wonderful strategy where you can engage young people, which is called the Human Library. And we organized a Human Library at Fort Richmond Collegiate, where the children wanted to learn about Indigenous issues. And I helped them to say, I will invite a number of Indigenous friends from the city and anybody who's from out of town. And what happens here is that these folks sit at tables and small groups of students sit with them and learn about Indigenous issues. And the children rotate from table to table. So within a couple of hours, they have heard from about 10 or 12 different Indigenous leaders. It was just absolutely amazing how the children responded. And they wanted to know how they could learn more after that. So again, in consultation with CEDA, we decided that we would try to connect Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, high school students from the city. This organization runs a program called Pathways to Education. Pathways to Education is trying to shore up the abilities and confidence of Indigenous and immigrant children in the inner city of Winnipeg. where the failure rates have just been frightening over the past several years. This program is starting to make a huge difference. The students' graduation rates have increased tremendously. So we thought we should try to get the children from the south end of the city together with children from the Pathways program and let them spend 4 days over the school year. 4 days of the school year in the company of elders, community leaders, other Indigenous folks, and engage in conversation, which will increase their understanding and engage them in reconciliation. So this was called Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. Next slide, please, Tessa. Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. And I'd urge you, I don't have time to talk much about it now to explain it, but that group that you see over there is made up of a whole bunch of people from the Pathways program, Indigenous kids. And then we had kids from the Fort Richmond Collegiate, where we had the Human Library. And then we invited another school from a division where I live, and they asked to be involved in this because they heard about it. It's called J. Esperance Collegiate. So the two schools from the non-Indigenous community and the Indigenous kids came together for 4 days of learning. And please, there's a very brief video. It's only about 5 or 6 minutes. And if you just Google Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges 2019 on Vimeo, you will listen to these kids talk about the impact that these 4 days had on their lives. Okay, and the next one, please. So now I'm going to ask my friend Tanya Monroe. Let me tell you how Tanya is involved in this. Our HIP committee decided to convene a meeting of a number of different people to talk about how we engage with the Indigenous community. And sitting around that table was this amazing person by the name of Tanya Monroe. And I didn't know her, I hadn't met her. This is about 3 years ago now. And I can't tell you how blessed I feel to have had Tanya come into my life. She's from Garden Hill First Nation. She taught in Garden Hill, by the way, is one of the 4 communities in the Island Lakes area, Island Lakes First Tribal Council. She worked there, taught at St. Teresa Point, the sister community, and then became the consultant for these Indigenous community affairs at the Department of Education in Winnipeg. When I saw her sitting across the table, I wondered about her. And at the end of the meeting, I went up to her and said, "Where are you from?" And then she told me her story. And I said, "Well, I've been to your community many, many decades ago." And so we got talking. And what I want to do is for you to hear from her about how this journey evolved in terms of how we are now connected with so many communities. Tanya?
Hi, good morning. What an introduction, I'm telling you. What a nice way to open my day. Thank you, Strini. And so that's a part of what he was talking about was reconciliation, and that's part of the work that I do, the truth and reconciliation. I've been a teacher for about 25 years, so I really know the Island Lake region. I know the people in the 4 communities. And so I brought that knowledge with me into my new job as Indigenous Perspectives Consultant for Manitoba Education. And so one day I was told, go to this meeting. It's about the Indigenous sports programming. So I went, and Strini was there, and the Rotarians were there. So I was really, really impressed on what programming was available for Indigenous communities. And that's when I heard HIP. I was new to the city, so I was new to the system. So, and I was like, wow, this is I want to be a part of this. So that's a part of like connection and building those relationships. So when Strini approached me, said, "Hey, my name is Strini." I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Let's be friends." So we became friends, fast friends, and we started working on these initiatives on connecting to Indigenous communities. So I said to him, well, you know, I'm pretty good at connecting with people and connecting people with each other, especially Indigenous communities in Manitoba. Um, so that's another thing that in order for people to connect with Indigenous communities, you gotta make those connections and make those um, look for those people that are willing to connect. And as Strini said, it's not a formal process. It's very informal. Like for example, I would call people, I would meet people, I would email people, texting, Facebooking, any way that I could talk to people on building relationships and connecting. We started off with Garden Hill. Strini had already started with building relationships with Garden Hill. That's when I met him. So when he said, "Well, I need your help in connecting with the people in Garden Hill. I want the Rotary Club would like to help Garden Hill in terms of providing skates, providing books." And I said, "Okay, I'll help you." So we did that. I think we did that for a couple of years. And then I said, well, why don't we do other communities such as St. Therese? So, and I was connected closely with St. Therese. So I was able to call the leaders there, the principals, the chief. So we got in there and we became friends with that community, and we're still friends, and we still work with them. So we constantly call them, say, okay, what do you need? What because it's because of COVID-19, their education system has gone remotely because they don't have Wi-Fi, they don't have a technology. So it's all like physical packages. And how can we help in that? So we're helping in that project also. So another community called Wasagamak, that's another community we connected with on how we can help them with their students and building relationships with adults and building relationships with the students. We've been really busy, and it's I'm really enjoying it. So one thing I can say about connecting with those Indigenous communities is just call them, and look for that person that can connect you into the community. And it's pretty easy. Once you find somebody and you start to connect with the community members, you start talking, because Indigenous people, we love to visit, we love to connect, um, we love to hug, and that's part of one of the hardships of COVID-19 is because we can't see each other, and the best way that I can do it is like through Zoom, through like I said, like through social media. I'm constantly texting people like, okay, what are your students need? What's your education system look like right now? So we're always talking, we're always conversing, and so yeah, we've been pretty busy, and so if um, yeah, so if you have any questions for me, I'm always available to answer your questions, or if you need help, I'm willing to help also. So
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you very much indeed. I'm so thankful that you took the time to join us this morning, because your perspective in this is very important. So from Tanya's comments, you'll see that our approach has been slow and deliberate, and mainly based on personal connections. You find the right people in the community, and things start to unfold. Now, this picture that you see up on the screen here, we engaged with Garden Hill School, but we decided that we wanted our children to be connected. So at this particular school, which is my grandson at the time was in grade 7, Echo River Heights. So I took advantage of speaking to his teacher because I heard that they had a Truth and Reconciliation Club in their school. And that fascinated me. So I had a good conversation with them. They invited me out to a school assembly to speak to the children. And then a few days later, I got a call from the Truth and Reconciliation Club kids asking if I would come and speak to them. And I thought to myself, this would be a great opportunity for me. And that by that time I had met Tanya, thankfully. So she and I went along because I had this first-class resource person with me to talk firsthand about Garden Hill. So she made a presentation to the children about her community. And the children, of course, were just totally floored by the challenges that they saw. I remember very clearly, Tanya showed some slides, and one of them had the grocery store and the prices. And one of the children said, "Is that really $14 or $4 for a jug of milk?" And I said, "No, that is 14. And they're all in unison said, "That's not fair." So that's what happens. That's the response of our kids when they know some of the injustices that are around us. So anyway, these young people, I said to them all, "What do you think you can do about this?" They said, "The first thing I want you to do is to connect with your counterparts there by letter, by email, whatever ways you can. We're going to leave that to you, and then you have to then talk to your friends up there. You are going to learn so much that you didn't know before, and that's going to be your gift. And you're going to find out what gifts you can offer to them in return." And within a couple of months, these children got together. They decided that their friends wanted books, which they were shocked to learn that there were no library books. And then they said that they needed hockey equipment and skates. So the kids got together, went around and looked at the list of partners that Ken was showing earlier on. These kids went and knocked on different doors and decided to collect a whole bunch of stuff. And by Christmas time, they called me to say, "Well, we have all the things ready for shipment to Garden Hill." Well, you know how much shipping by air would cost. So we couldn't do that. I went down to the Northwest Company, which has stores in all these communities, and I said, "I need you to help me ship this stuff by Winter Road when you're going up to Garden Hill." And of course, I told them I couldn't pay them any money for it, so they were already making enough. So we sent this, and you can see the picture over there. This is as much as the kids connected. And what we did was, as a club, we put together a list of the most needed culturally relevant books for Indigenous kids, purchased them and sent them along with the hockey equipment. And that, of course, was just absolutely wonderfully well received. The next slide, please. Now, various building bridges programs that I told you about earlier on, I spoke to them and told them about what we were trying to do. And I explained to them the Garden Hill project and how we were connected with Garden Hill. Well, that night I got a call from a young woman from JS Branch Collegiate saying to me, "What would it take for us to be able to do that with one of the First Nations communities?" And I said, "Well, it'll take a conversation to begin with. And I do happen to know a couple of people from the community, and you'll have to sit down with them and discuss what your vision is. But the first thing you have to do is you're going to have to learn about the community that you'll be working with." Now, St. Teresa Point is that the second largest or the largest, Tanya? In Island Lakes. Is Island Lakes, is Garden Hill bigger than St. Teresa Point?
Yeah, Garden Hill is the biggest and St. Teresa's second biggest.
Okay, so there's a second largest community in that Island Lakes area. And so what we did was, again, I called on Tanya's help. And I said to these young people, "We'll bring an elder to speak to your school. But before we do that, it just so happens that the Director of Education and principals from Garden Hill are going to be in the city having a meeting. So why don't I take you and introduce you to them, and you say what it is you would like to do and have this conversation with them." And if they say they invite you to join them, good. If not, nothing lost. So I took these young people to speak to the director of education and the three principals. And they were just absolutely blown away by these young people and their good hearts and how they respectfully asked whether they can learn from and with the kids in St. Teresa Point and what they could do to support them. And that was the beginning of a wonderful, wonderful friendship. The students then went back to their school, addressed the entire staff, along with an elder from St. Teresa Point, and told the teachers, we want the entire school to be involved in this relationship with the community of St. Teresa Point. Of course, the teachers said yes. So they had a whole school assembly, invited Tanya and I to speak to the school assembly, to explain what this project was all about. And then we said to them, you explain in your words what you think this is all about, which they did. We don't have time to talk about the details, but incredible things that happened in that relationship, including last year, a group of students from St. Teresa, from J.S. Bruns Collegiate went to spend a week with their counterparts up in St. Teresa Point, learning with them. And here you can see that they were learning drumming from the students. It changed these young people's lives. When they came back, they couldn't contain themselves, talking about what they had learned and how they want to continue their relationship. The saddest thing for us was that COVID intervened, because we were going to have a return visit. The St. Teresa Point kids were going to be coming to spend a week here in the city with their counterparts. And sadly, that has not happened. But we're hoping that the relationship will continue and that the students will be able to do this sometime in the future. So that St. Teresa Point relationship led to another one, because the third community in the Island Lakes area, which is called Wasegamuk, then wanted to know, well, what about us? And Tanya, of course, connected me with the director of education at Wasegamuk. And you know here that this is a back and forth thing, right? The community sometimes says, hey, what's going on at our neighboring community? Rotary seems to be in there doing something. Perhaps we can get in on the act as well. And so that conversation led to the fact that we again started by connecting. One of my friends is a principal of a school here in Winnipeg. And I said, you know what? We've got a great opportunity here for you. Why don't you connect your kids, a classroom of kids, with kids in Wasegamuk? And that's what we did. And in this picture, you see an elder from Wasegamuk that Tanya brought down to the city to come and spend a half day with the children who were communicating with the kids in Wasegamuk. And I tell you, I sat there just amazed at the curiosity of the kids, the respectfulness, and how much they really desperately wanted to know from the elder about life in our community. These children are still connected, and they will continue to be connected. While they're doing that, we are trying to work with the community as a whole to see what we can do about raising the rates of literacy, what we can do about providing basic needs and basic necessities. And we've been very successful in doing that. COVID again messed us up badly, because we have been developing over the past 2 to 3 years summer programs for these communities, because folks told us, and we knew this already, that the summers are long and boring for the kids. So apart from some of the culturally relevant activities that they do for a week or two, the rest of the time the children are at a loose end, not knowing what to do. And folks will share with us quite openly that that's when the problems arise. And they get antisocial behavior, and in fact, devastating things like suicides in communities, which just breaks your heart, because you know that these are kids like anybody else, and they want the same kinds of activities and opportunities. So we worked very hard with them to put together summer activities. This past year, I had negotiated with the Frontier College, because they have started offering summer literacy programs in some of the northern communities. And they agreed to put the program into Wasegamuk and St. Teresa Point. Sadly, they couldn't do it, but what they did do was they gave us print materials, which we sent into the communities, and they ran them off at the school and sent them into the homes so that the children would have interesting materials to deal with while they were being isolated. So that was an interesting thing. And in addition to that, we have for the past couple of years tried to educate our children in the city, as many as possible, about the situation in the north. So I went out to schools, spoke to people, spoke to staff of divisions, and asked them if they would join us in trying to gather books and winter clothing, gently used winter clothing. Now, this is something that we have to deal with very, very gently. We would not send the gently used winter clothing unless the community asked for it. So in our conversations with the community, since we build mutual trust, we said, you know, what are the most fundamental needs? What do you think we might be able to help with? And one of the things they constantly said was, the winters here are long and severe. We need winter clothing. So for 2 years in a row now, and this year, sadly, I really breaks my heart to know that we can't do this year. But the past couple of years, we collected from different school divisions, gently used winter clothing and books in good condition, and which were very, very carefully screened before we sent them out. And we shipped them out to the communities. You can see this shipment waiting for being sent out to the Island Lakes communities last year. And this year, what happened was, we don't know what, we're engaging with people in some of the larger organizations. We've connected with an organization in Ontario, which I found to be supporting people. It's called True North Aid. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. So the books and clothing things will be annual. They'll be done every year. We're very careful to, we engage our students in sorting and packing, and we teach them how to be very respectful by tossing out anything that they themselves would not wear. And they become very conscious of this and are really very respectful. All right, next one, please, Stacey. Now, this one here is one of my favorite pictures. I said we shipped books into the communities. One of the programs we introduced into the community from the University of Manitoba was called the Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program. And what we did there were some students from St. Teresa Point who were attending school here in Winnipeg. We had the university folks train these young people to run this Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program, which is a program where you provide physical activity, but it goes along with literacy. And we thought this was just a wonderful thing. So we trained 6 students from St. Teresa Point to run this program. And then we got the community, and we helped with it, to hire these 6 students over the summer. And these 6 students were then going to run the Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program in their community. And they did. And so it was a wonderful success. When I flew down there towards the end of the program, there was this huge round table in the middle of the room. The table was covered with books that we had sent out. And the children had their heads down, and they were all deeply engrossed in whatever their favorite books were. So I said to the person in charge, I said, you know what, let's do something good here. And I know the program ends tomorrow, but we want to do a little book giveaway today. So I want to say to the children, they can choose as many of their favorite books as they want and take them home to keep them for themselves. Well, I no sooner said it than they were all up and grabbing armfuls of books. And here you see them all very proud. And I'll never forget the one little guy who came up to me and said, thank you. This is the very first time I'm going to have my very own books in my very own home. So the magic of this is continuing to unfold, and we're learning as we go. I have to make it very clear to you that we have no magical answers to this. It's just a process that we're working through. We're learning as we go, but we do know that in the process of reconciliation, the one important thread is the building relationships. And this is what's sustaining us. We are continuing to build relationships as much as we possibly can. And we know that if we continue to do that, we will continue to be successful. Now, I told you that we made connections with a group called True North Aid. I was, scouting around. I keep looking around to see who's working with Indigenous communities. How can we get our finger in the pie? So one of the communities, St. Teresa Point, said to me, next winter is going to be long and cold, and we're going to be confined to our homes, and we're going to have severe problems with our youth in the community if we don't do something to prepare activities for them in advance. And I said, well, what are you thinking of? He said, well, we have an arena, we have a rink, but we have no equipment, no hockey equipment, skates, etc. So that's when last spring I was casting around to find out who we might tap to help us with this. And I found this organization called True North Aid. I've now developed a very good relationship with them. And I said to them, I have a big ask. Do you think that you can tap people on the shoulder and say, would you collect for us a whole lot of equipment to be sending to St. Teresa Point for next winter? They said, well, we hadn't thought about that, but give us some time and we'll think about it. So we had this conversation, and the next thing I know, I got a call in the fall saying we're working on this. We can't promise anything, but we're working on it. And then the next thing that happened is, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Well, this is part of the summer program. We purchased a whole lot of soccer equipment because I said the children wanted soccer. So we ordered a bunch of soccer equipment, sent it, and the boys and girls had a wonderful time last summer, 2019. The next one, please. So this is the picture that True North Aid sent to me. They said, here is what we're doing for St. Teresa Point. And as we speak right now, 7 pallets of skates and hockey equipment are on their way to St. Teresa Point. And they're going to have a wonderful winter. The kids are going to be able to play hockey and enjoy themselves. And our club helped with the paying the cost of shipment, which are exorbitant. So in a partnership way, we managed to do something really good. And this is going to have a tremendous impact on the lives of the young people there. This same organization, we've been in conversation now with them for about 6 months or so. We kept asking, what else can you do for the communities? Well, they helped us to send 2 other communities we work with are Little Grand Rapids and Pangasi. Smaller, much smaller communities, but in greater need. And we've been doing the same things with them, sending clothing, sending books, connecting kids with kids, and all that kind of stuff. That's the model we sort of use now. And in those communities, things are pretty bad. Unfortunately, Little Grand Rapids is one of the first communities to be affected by COVID, and they're in bad shape right now. But we asked True North Aid to help us by sending backpacks of materials for the children during the COVID period. So they provide us with backpacks for every child and youth in each of those communities, which arrived in the communities, and they were very happy about it, of course. So just by, leveraging resources, by talking to different people, we were able to do this. And that's why I was so impressed with what Ken talked about United Way and those dozens of organizations that he's connected with. This is the kind of thing that we're trying to do now, is to connect with as many organizations. Conversations with True North Aid, we talked about food. And so as a result of those conversations, we came to the conclusion that the communities are going to have a terrible time getting flour, which is a staple, into the communities. And so we chatted about this, and I said, you know what, we have flour mills right here in Manitoba, right here in Winnipeg and surrounding areas. So if we wanted to access flour, this would be the place to do it. Well, the next thing I knew is that they found some sponsors who were happy to sponsor X number of pallets of flour. And then we started thinking about, well, what about the distribution? So I contacted a friend of mine at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and I said, we have an opportunity here for people who will donate flour. First of all, I want to know is, do you agree that we should do this? And do you think the communities would want this? And they said, absolutely yes. So they connected me with their COVID response unit. And we talked about this. And I said, one of the things that prevents people from accessing these donations is paperwork, because some of these organizations require some paperwork. So I said, would you commit to, first of all, sending out the notice to all your communities, inviting them to participate? And secondly, would you then commit doing the paperwork to help them access the flour? Well, the thing just grew beautifully. The next slide, please. So this thus was born from Bag to Bannock, Flower Project 2020. And as we speak, more than half the communities in Manitoba have accessed this, and people in Ontario are doing the same. I'm not sure whether they've reached into Saskatchewan, but perhaps they have. So this was
Strini,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. There's about 8 minutes left in this session. So if you want to leave an opportunity for questions, you'll have to wrap up fairly quickly. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me just stop right there. I want to say that we've had tremendous satisfaction. We've learned a lot. One of the ways we educated ourselves in the beginning, we wanted all our club members to be aware of what's going on. And so we had a series of Indigenous speakers come and talk to us. You heard both Kevin speak at our district conference. These are amazing people, and I'm so proud of our district inviting those two wonderful friends to come and address us. So we've had people like that. We've had Nigan Sinclair, you know, the University of Manitoba professor who writes a regular column in the Free Press. He's the son of Murray Sinclair, Senator Murray Sinclair. We've had people like that. We invited the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba, Manitoba Chiefs. So those are important things, getting ourselves fully up to speed and knowledgeable and interacting with these folks. So there's a lot more I can say, but I think Fred is right. I better stop, and otherwise I'll go talking all day.
Strini, what an amazing presentation. If you have questions, please go to the participants thing, and you'll find an opportunity to raise your hand so that we can do this in an orderly manner. If you have just a comment to make, you can put it in the chat. So any questions for Strini, please?
Please feel free to address Tanya as well, because she knows as much or more about this than I do.
You got a wonderful comment from Nancy Cosway in the chat line, and I can only echo her comments. Are there any questions, Patty, coming up with the raised hands?
There are no hands.
Anything you'd like to say in closing, Strini?
I just want to say, Fred, that first of all, I really, really appreciate this opportunity. To those clubs who invited me to present to them, if anybody is interested at all, anybody, you know, I love our district, and I would like us to be leaders. I would like us to be able to shine the light continually on these children. And as I said, I'm very proud of what it is we're doing already, but I would love to see our district become aggressively involved in connecting with Indigenous communities. And really, there are so many people in our district with such good hearts about literacy and children. This has been a passion, lifelong passion of mine. And I would just like to see us get more hands-on involved. And we've got so many good minds in our different clubs who can find ways tailored to their communities. So I'd urge you to do that. And I'm willing to engage in a conversation anytime you want to talk.
Okay.
Strini, thank you so much. You're
Fred?
an inspirational leader.
Fred, there is a hand up. David?
David?
Unmute yourself,
Yeah,
please.
Yes, David Newman here. Strini, great job, and Tay's here, a wonderful job supporting him. I just wanted to say that the background to this connection with Tanya Monroe, thanks Tanya, wonderful presentation, was because our district has a MOU with the Department of Education Training Department of Manitoba. So that is now in its 4th year. We had, and that connection opened up the door to us to directly approach consultants like Tanya. That's why she was at the meeting that Strini was at with Rotarians. So that is our district relationship. You can do that in Saskatchewan, you can do it in Ontario. And I strongly urge it, because the connection with your Department of Education that's provincially can open many, many doors. The Aboriginal Sports and Recreation organization in Manitoba, was the place where we met. And that again was a partnership which has led to many things happening and help in shipping and help in connecting with communities. So you have a similar organization in Ontario, and I assume there's a similar organization in Saskatchewan. So I urge you to think within a framework like that, the kinds of things that Strini does. The doors are open for the Strinis of the world. Thank you.
So again, Strini, thank you for a wonderful presentation, and you're an inspirational leader. You're doing what Rotary is about. I want to just drop back quickly to Jean-Marc's question regarding the larger centers. The neighborhood approach, I should have thought of it at that time. Charleswood is another club that took a neighborhood approach. They work with the West Grove neighborhood, which is a very disadvantaged neighborhood, and they're doing wonderful things there, the same as the Winnipeg Club is doing with the core. So in the larger centers, look at your neighborhood to get the engagement, and obviously from Strini to engage with our Indigenous neighbors, we need to work on making our connections. Thank you again, Strini, for a wonderful presentation. You've really enlightened. There's wonderful comments happening in the chat. And now I think we're moving to a break.